Thank you very much for the introduction, kind introduction, Dr. Khaloufa. I didn't know that this was a lengthy one, but anyways. So I'm happy to be presenting the topic today. I tried to make it a little bit different, the topic, because I don't want to present slides and numbers. We want action plan for this. So I'm going to spend a few minutes on this one. So ignore the PM. I'm not sure what happened with the PM, but numbers. Do you know what? Yeah, man. Do you know what this number represents? Leukemia and lymphoma, 131 and 148. Can anyone guess? Yeah, general. I don't expect you to guess, but I did a literature search, and I put leukemia as a keyword, as a search term, and I put Saudi Arabia as a search term. So since inception, from 1948 until yesterday, we have only 131 publications in lymphoma in Saudi Arabia. Leukemia, we have only 148. So you can understand that we are really lacking. The numbers are very, very low. Is anyone surprised here about the numbers? Were you expecting higher numbers? Everyone is expecting higher numbers. But it's not gloomy. I will be frank, it's not gloomy. For the first 15 years, so for the first publication that I noticed was in 1985-89. From 85 until 2005, there were only, I think, around 50 to 60 publications. And then the next 15 years, we had 100 publications. So it is improving. And it is also improving the last 5 years, 7 years. So really the leap is coming really, it's not a linear progression, it's more of a log linear progression that you have an increase, incremental increase in the later stage. So this is very encouraging. However, most of the data that is coming out in leukemia and lymphoma, it's more of a review, articles, case reports, some basic research, and some clinical research. So meaning the application of this research is really, really lacking. And we really need to improve on this, because by research we can know what type of diseases that we're dealing. What is the presentation? How are we diagnosing? Are we diagnosing well, or are we not diagnosing well? And are we treating them right? And if the treatment that is the gold standards in the Western region, is it really applicable to us? So this is, all of us is this lacking. However, we are improving, so it's not really gloomy all the way. It's not an easy question to answer how clinical trials are doing in Saudi Arabia. It's very, very difficult to cover this topic in 25 minutes, but I'll try my best. Obviously, the purpose of any research is the healthcare providers have multiple goals to do research. So it's personal gain, either it's a promotion, financial gain, satisfaction, or creating a different environment. Some of us, they don't like to be in the clinical environment all the 24/7. So we would like to change a little bit of the style. For healthcare receivers, it's more of a trust. So they can know, they can benchmark whether we're doing a good job or not. So patients know that, okay, we're going to this X hospital, and we know this X hospital is doing well. We know this. Everyone knows this. Sometimes we know that we're not blaming the other hospitals, but we know that, okay, maybe the research is not coming out. We don't know how they're doing. The importance of doing clinical trials is the hierarchy of the evidence-based medicine. We know that the case series and case reports, they are at the bottom. As we progress in the type of study, we move along. And the evidence, the quality of evidence improves. Obviously, systematic review and meta-analysis, we are doing a lot of this. I have to be frank. We are doing a lot of this. But we're using the data that is coming out from other countries, but we're not using the data that is coming out from our country. So reporting on the clinical trials, there are multiple reports on clinical trials in Saudi Arabia. However, the way that it's measured is quite different. So we don't really know if the numbers might be accurate or not. But I'm going to present these numbers. So this is one of the in 2017. Dr. Ali published this with his colleagues, a cross-national sectional analysis on trials in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So for over the 16 years, they analyzed how many studies were done, and they wanted to know if what was the quality, etc. So they identified 455 studies over the span of the 16 years, and as we can see here, it's quite improving. So in 1999, there were very, very few clinical trials ongoing, but as you can see, the curve is moving upward, and there are more and more trials coming on. Obviously, it needs an update, but it's very reassuring that the trials are happening. We shouldn't be discouraged about the not complete, because not completed doesn't mean it's bad, but it means it's still ongoing. Maybe it's a longer project. It takes 10 years, 15 years to complete, but we shouldn't be discouraged about this. I want you to concentrate on the randomization. Most of the trials were randomized. It's okay to have a non-randomized clinical trial, but it's reassuring that most of the trials were randomized. Phase 3 and phase 4 were a majority of them. However, we know that and my colleague, Dr. Mohammed Makati, is going to talk about the basic science, the wet lab research. It's really lacking. To phase 0, phase 1, it's really lacking. We have to really work on that. And maybe this is where the universities has to come and establish a program for this. This is not expected, and there's nothing to be alarmed about this table. Neoplasm, we do have a young population that is growing, so we are expecting that neoplasm to have a good burden in our society. So 22% of the research was coming, focused. The trials, 22% of the trials were focusing on the neoplasm. We know that we have diabetes, the highest proportion of diabetes in the world, or almost one of the top countries of diabetes, and as well as ischemic heart disease. So it is 14 and 11% of the trials were focused on these two diseases. Now, I know Dr. Hani Al-Hashmi, he left, but this is a good slide. Industry, only 44% of the trials were sponsored by the industry. I think we need more money and more support. It is difficult for non-industrial field to support themselves. So I think more connection is needed between the industrial field and the research and the researchers. Hospital and universities are trying to support themselves, but I think by them alone is not enough. Okay, the fate of the registered clinical trials performed in Saudi Arabia. So we're going to talk about what about the trials that were done in Saudi Arabia that are currently closed. Again, it's over the span of 12 years. 138 trials were closed. Out of them, 79 met the inclusion criteria. Again, 65% here of the trials were sponsored by the industry. However, we need to emphasize on the status. Most of the trials that were completed were done in the sponsorship with the other countries. So trials that were coming out from Saudi Arabia, they were not really a higher proportion of them were not completed. We are not really doing bad in regards to randomized clinical trials. Saudi Arabia, compared to their neighborhood countries like Kuwait, UAE, and Lebanon, we are doing much, much better than those countries. However, still, we need to do much more in regards to clinical trials. It's not all gloomy picture in regards to clinical trials. So the number of research that is coming from out of Saudi Arabia is improving. As you can see from the graph here, More in research is done in Saudi Arabia over the last 20 years. The number of studies that is published is really growing, so this is reassuring. I know that we are a little bit restricted on time, so I'm just going to focus on slides that are going to matter for us. So, okay, so let's start with this question. Who thinks public and patient participation is an issue for us? Yes or no? Yes? So you are right. So there was a study done that asked participants whether they wanted to participate in the clinical trials. As you can see, 60% and almost 60, more than 50% of them, they fear from the risk of the participation, fear from unknown, or had medical reasons not to participate. This is so if we have participants that they cannot participate in the clinical, patients who cannot participate in clinical trials, it's going to be an issue. Why is it going to be an issue? If you don't have patients, you cannot do clinical trials. So this is an important barrier. So we don't have only that pharmaceutical companies are not sponsoring us, even the patients are not willing to conduct, to be part of the clinical trial. So this is also an obstacle. So far we have recognized this, but nobody came up with an action plan to overcome this. Again, a similar study was done, fear of risk, religious reasons. It takes long time to participate. Again, this is all our barriers for patients to participate in clinical trials. Okay, so another questions I put in, researchers face issues that prevent them from clinical trials. Who do you think, who agrees with this? Everyone, I think, agrees with that. Now, so we have, there's a survey, again, there was, so whether they were interested in clinical trials, the attitude, 88% of them were interested in doing it. Interested in facilitate with others, so 61%. Again, it's not a high number, so everyone was interested, but not everyone was interested in collaboration. Reason not to participate in clinical trials, the lack of awareness, 68%, almost 70%. Not familiar with research, almost half of them, and lack of interest in 1/3 of them. Lack of protected time. I think this is a common theme. Everyone wants to do research, but we are not protected. Again, it's a barrier, and it's a repeated barrier that we find it in the literature, but I think without pointing out which hospital, but I think every hospital doesn't provide protected time. Everyone agrees on that. صح ولا لا؟ Conclusion, patients are receptive for idea for research. However, they have barriers we need to explain to them, and we need to come up with the plan. So I am hoping that by the end, I'm hoping with this meeting that we can meet together and we can overcome these barriers. Okay, what others are doing? So Dr. Hani al-Hashmi talked about the Saudi NIH. I think this is a very good start because this is how research is being done in other countries. So they have NIH in the United States. So, and in UK, they have the United Kingdom, for example, they have this collaboration going on. It's just a group. It's not in a governmental, it's not like an NHS group. It's just a collaboration group. So I'm going to present these two programs and how they're doing it. So in the research in the National Cancer Institute Community Cancer Center program, they have 16 sites. They're planning. So they started in 2007 with 16 sites. It increased to 30 by 2010. They had a structure where there were a committee overseeing the objective. I'm going to present that shortly. Engagement. They made sure that they had multiple strategies to make sure that every site was involved. So this is how. Okay, the slide is missing. But anyway, they identified the barriers and they made sure that every site is involved, and they supported it with the staff and with money. Here, this is a group, we're a children group. They divided it into working groups, 16 working groups, and each group focused on a disease, and they came up with a strategy to to start research and to support research. I think we can do this in Saudi Arabia. We can have, and I think we do have a leukemia and lymphoma group, but I think we need more of the of researchers to collaborate with each other so we can support these type of groups. Right. The last portion of this talk is going to be what is the role of the institute in advancing research. Institute have many missions, but we have to focus on the social and research. Structure-wise, we have to think about if we're going to collaborate, we need to work on under one umbrella. So we need to have maybe perhaps a single CEO with the overreaching board. So we have supporting members from each of the hospitals. And lastly, multiple leaders with loosely connected teams. Okay, conclusion, conducting trials is not easy. Establishing a structure is very important, and recognizing factors that can advance research is also important so we can overcome the barriers.
Thank you.